Roll call for the City Council meeting of Wednesday, May 4th, 2016 at 9 a.m. Mr. Mursky, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon. Please rise for a moment of silent meditation and Pledge of Allegiance.
This morning I'd ask that we remember all of those in our community, locally and globally, that are less fortunate than we are in any and every way. We thank all of those who continue to work so diligently in our community for the improvement of our community. We also want to remember those who have lost loved ones since the last time we were in these chambers, and remember them in our thoughts and prayers. And finally, we ask our God and Creator to give us the wisdom and the right information to make the best decisions for the citizens of the city of Erie.
Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of minutes for the meeting of April 20th, 2016, and bills for payment on April 29th and May 6th, 2016. Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Mursky.
Any requests for repository sales? Any requests for repository sales? Seeing none, we'll continue on with the meeting. Citizens to be heard. Our first citizen that signed up before the meeting was Mr. Randy Barnes.
Good morning, Council President, Council, Administration. Yes, my name is Randy Barnes, 109 Walton Point. And I got to thinking this morning, a year from now, we'll know who the new mayor is going to be, because obviously in a Democratic town, after the primary in May, we'll have a new mayor. Of course, they won't take office until January 1st of 2018. So we're going to be looking for a person with strong leadership. We're coming up on the 2-year anniversary, July, of when Mr. Jim Clem, a 47-year employee, retired from city clerk's office. And that was the month that interviewed on TV. He said, well, I wanted to retire a year earlier, but I stayed on because my friend Jim Winarski asked me to stay on for another year. He interviewed on TV, told us that. Well, that same month, there was a resolution to hire Mr. Clem for $1,000 a month for the next 24 months. And the sitting council people are still here who voted for that were Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, and Mr. Jones. And they felt that the incoming city clerk did not have the proper skills to do the job, and Mr. Clem was going to continue to train the new incoming clerk and advise council. Well, 3 months later, the city controller sent a letter, said to Council President Witherspoon, said, where's the contract? Where's the contract? You've had this employee as a contract employee for 3 months and we have no contract. So it sounds like the whole office was disarray. Nobody knew they needed a contract to pay this man $1,000 a month to come down and hold their hand. Nobody knew that? The city controller did, because when they started asking for the $1,000 a month to hand them, hey, I need a contract. You know, deep down inside me, I believe the incoming city clerk was trained the day she took the job. She had ran council meetings before that. She was well qualified. She has people she can get answers from. She has city council people that had been on city council for years and years and years. She could ask them. Bothers me to think that, you know, we pay a retiree to come down because he's friends with some city council people $1,000 a month, $12,000 a year. That's half of what the 3 centers are going to get this year for recreation. The Booker T, the MLK, and JFK, they're going to get about $25,000 this year for the summer recreation program. Mr. Clem's getting half of that to come down to, I guess it was Archive Records. That was called Perillo and tell him to scan the microfiche and hold City Council's hand because, well, that's what friends do. Friends help each other out monetarily, emotionally, socially. That's what friends do. They help each other out. You know, it's exciting to see that the Police Athletic League may be formed again. Buffalo's had one for many years, and it's quite a success. And that's how you reach these youth. You don't reach them in the classroom. You reach them outside the classroom. You reach them on a soccer field, a basketball court, a football field, a tennis court. When these youth interact with adults, they find out these adults are not so bad. And boy, if you're a youth and you're a group of youth and you're friends with a police officer, how many of those bad youth are going to approach you to try to sell you drugs, get you hooked on drugs? Because you already know, these people, these leaders, these policemen, they're not bad people. But again, when our adults can interact with these children, that's the best way we can move this city forward. Now, I encourage the center, when they get the $30,000 for the basketball league this year, they go out and they try to get a business to underwrite the shirts and get the shirts for free. Put the name of that business on the shirts. I encourage the center, when they get the $30,000 today you're going to vote on for the basketball league, to go out and talk to the sporting goods store and say, you know what, I need X amount of basketballs, and you're going to donate them, please, and we're going to put your picture in the colored section in the back of the newspaper that you donated basketballs to the Spoon Basketball League to help us stretch that $30,000, help it go further. Get a business on those shirts. Don't spend it all on... We don't need to spend it on those kind of things. We can get that stuff donated. We ask the referees to donate some of their time. But again, this thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. Our next citizen to be heard, Miss Amy Competor.
Good morning, Council.
Good morning. Good morning.
I'm here today on behalf of the buses, EMTA in general, for the welfare of our citizens. As I've said before, our city relies on these buses much more than I imagine any of us could imagine. We're talking about, one of the things that I wish I had actually taken with me when I was in college and I didn't listen to my instructors about, was that they said to me, you know what, Amy, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And that has become a very relevant truth. I had gotten in contact 2 months ago in March with the Federal Transit Administration. Went over PennDOT's head because PennDOT wanted us to play like good little children together. And I don't have time for politicians to grow up when they're going to affect county and citywide mass. It's sad that we couldn't resolve this issue amongst ourselves. We're all adults, or at least I like to think we are. I know a lot of you very well. In my mind, you conduct yourselves nobly. I just started going to county council, so I'm not too certain of my opinion yet on that. But I can say this. They are very... I talked to Chairman Horton for over an hour after that meeting. He had mentioned to me about 18 communications that they'd sent. I haven't seen the proof of this yet. But in my mind, that creates an awful lot of resentment. A civil unrest could envelop this city, could envelop the county. And like I've said before, imagine all the people that rely on it. You're not just going to see city businesses and city people fall. You're going to see county businesses fall because we have people that go from the city for their livelihoods out to the county. They do it for medical care. They do it for work. They do it for a whole lot of reasons. Yes, we have problems within EMTA sometimes. Absolutely. One of the things I'm working on right now is going to be the reduced fare against the ADA fare for the lift because there's a huge discrepancy. However, those problems can be resolved within EMTA constructively. I find that many people have skipped actually going to the EMTA authorities. I encourage them to all go to the executive director, supersede, the chain of command they've already gotten. If they've gone through a few of them, which many people have complained to me that they have gone through, but they didn't go up to Mike Tan himself. I said, if you've gone through, and I urge citizens, if you haven't gone to Mike Tan himself and told him this, then please go to him, talk to him, okay? I will see them on May 12th. I have new issues to bring to light to them. Nobody wants to lose their jobs. Nobody wants to lose their homes. And nobody wants to see the city of Erie go dark. I love this city. That's why I create a nonprofit in this city. I want to see this city succeed. But we can't succeed if we're not unified. Forgive whatever has occurred. Go on behalf of the citizens. Keep them in mind. Yes, a lot of us know this is about power play of representation. This is about using the citizens and the authority as pawns. These are things that people realize. And you have to realize we realize this. And I'm going to end with this. It shouldn't be about seats. It shouldn't be about power. It should be about what's good for the people of the city and county of Erie. And if we can't help our citizens, then why is any of the council bodies in the seats that they're in? And with that, I thank you for my time.
Thank you. Our next citizen to be heard, Mr. Gary Horton.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Council, Gary Horton, Quality of Life Learning Center, 2046 East 19th Street. I came here this morning kind of with mixed emotions. I think the citizen participation component of the Community Development Block Grant Program is flawed. I think the process that they've conducted has deprived New American or non-English speaking people an opportunity to have a voice in it. And I believe that the city's attempt so far to just divide up the money and say here and say that's the citizens' participation component is a flawed process. And I believe that for a person to have to come to council and then rush in 5 minutes to tell you to have a voice, the voice of the community about their program. I've called some of you and I've tried to meet with some of you. I've suggested to some of you that we want to have a voice, and so here I am today. So the first point I want to make, I just think the citizens' opportunity to have a real voice is lacking, and then you want us to trust you as you say we're going to refocus. You have a new program or initiative you want to present to the people in the community, and you want real citizens' participation in it. I, as one citizen, I'm kind of concerned about that. The second thing is the outcomes, what happens, the results, and even who gets the money reinforces that there's no citizen's voice. I mean, your inability to help us, even help ourselves, or to deprive the neighborhood centers into merging hurts neighborhoods. I just don't buy that approach as being what the city needs. We asked for $60,000. I would accept 50, but in what you're giving to some people who have, and to yourselves, and I know you have it, I see the budget, you've never given me anything. I'm asking you for $50,000 to allow us to invest in ourselves. We presented a program, Invest in Erie. I've talked to people from Washington to California to New York to Philadelphia that want to invest in neighborhoods in Erie, and some of you know it. You know what I'm doing. The city don't want to be a part of it. The only person I ever know who took a peanut and did anything is one of my heroes, Booker T. Washington and George Washington Carver. Well, we use that same philosophy at our center. We believe in education and hard work, learning and productivity, and we get results. And we know that for Kim Green to say that without ever coming to our program and seeing what we do, we have over 200 kids, we have kids from all over the world, and to tell us that the people they're giving all this money to, and they do a good job, but theirs is the model only, I just think that's, again, lacking real citizen participation. So the city has said no to us, and I just hope and pray that you'll look at the work that we do. We embody John Horan's program. He immerses the neighborhoods, his developments. They're the safest in the city. He has community policing. Community policing is not just overtime. It's not just overtime. It's investment. And you have enough there to feed other organizations, to give them something. I'm asking for a peanut of $50,000. I think you have it. I think you have it. I think your return on your investment to us, next year we may not even be standing here asking you for anything. All we're doing is asking you for some help. For some people who can't come here and give you voice because they haven't been reached out to, recognizing their nature of their barriers, their cultural or their language barriers. So I'm here to argue for them. No other program that you fund serves them like that. Maybe one or two. We send them to college, we get them jobs, we grow gardens, we teach them vocational learning, we give them career development, we have them on college prep programs, and for the city to give us nothing. This mayor and this administration for 11 years have said no. I'm asking city council, which one of you can make a recommendation and do a public vote to give E.F. Smith Quality of Life Learning Center the same thing you're giving some of the other organizations in our community that do good work.
Thank you for your time. Next citizen to be heard, Cynthia Mohammed.
Good morning, Council.
Good
morning.
Cynthia Muhammad, 2213 Parade Street, Erie, in Erie, Pennsylvania. I'm the publisher of the Erie Metro Black Page Business Directing Resource Guide. And right here it says comprehensive plan. I first want to start by suggesting that it says citizens to be heard. I'd like to consider citizens to be heard and answered. Years ago, when I was a young woman, I followed Mrs. Lindsay here on many occasions, and when she spoke, somebody up there always said, well, we'll get back to you, or the head of this department will be in touch with you. I didn't see that happening, so I stopped coming. And so people like Mr. McDonald and McAdory and Curlette would come every week, and I'd listen to them on the television. And after looking at the comprehensive plan, I called Mr. Horton. I guess I wanted him to come and speak for me, but he said, you should get your name on the agenda and speak for yourself. I can speak very well for myself. I'm going to slow down and just read to you the notes that I have and hope that someone will be in touch with me. And one of the things that Mrs. Lindsay talked about was Paul's Towing. She fought Paul's Towing being put where it is, and now if you look over at that area, there's Paul's Towing and poles all over the place. I grew up on East 19th Street. Mrs. Rogers is the last house there. Mrs. Rogers is a very old woman. Paul's Towing is all around there. The I think it was AJ's Towing between Wallace and Ash. It looks terrible over there. Somebody needs to have a fence there. Somebody's child is going to be hurt, just like the children were hurt crossing the Viaduct Bridge years ago. There's glass broken. Poles has taken over that area. So many junkyards are there. Isn't there a regulation that says things like that should be outside the city? It's just like the East Side. You don't care about the East Side at all? That doesn't make any sense. We pay taxes. When you write your proposals and get funding, I'm sure that you use us as statistics. Isn't that taxation without representation? Okay, in the Parade Street corridor, I didn't see where it was being developed to the point that Praise Street Development Corporation, I was a member of that years ago, and it went to the bridge and it didn't do anything else in terms of developing that area. We'd like some help over there. Okay. I see Little Italy is getting money again. When the Praise Development Corporation was functioning daily or weekly, the money was sent to Little Italy once again. Had concerns about that. I did talk about the taxation. And of course, as an advocate for small businesses and entrepreneurs, I'd like to know where the support for those organizations are. Also, I'd like to speak to the Viaduct Bridge. It's much needed. We need to develop that area. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Our next citizen to be heard, Mr. Chantel Hilliard. Mr. Hilliard is not here, so we will open it up to any citizens to be heard from the audience. Any citizens to be heard?
Good morning, Council. I'm not going to bite you. I have to speak behind Mr. Horton here. Y'all don't intend on doing nothing for us kids, do you? Let me tell you something. When they come back to haunt you, when they get tired of y'all screwing over them, you'll know. You'll think about what we come down here trying to get you to do. You sit on one course. It looks like we're not going to do nothing for them. But I promise you this. You'll wish you had or did something for them. You just wait. It's a shame for you to treat our kids the way you do. I don't see no white folks coming down here banging for their kids. They don't have to. They got somebody up there representing them. We don't have nobody representing us. Not yet. I'm not going to tickle your ears and tell you what you want to hear. It's a shame. You took that money from them kids, let me see, last year, year before last, I don't know when it was, and gave it to the policeman for overtime. You've been telling me we got to get this money in the budget for this. This is budget for that. Bull crap. Bull crap. You can move money anywhere you want to. You do all the time. You want to take them centers over now. That's a bad idea. You want to get all the black in one hut. You're going to take money and build a building instead of repairing those. And you haven't did nothing for those buildings for over 20 years. You should be ashamed of yourselves. You should be ashamed to want to sit up there. We're not proud of nothing you've done. Everything you do it for Joe. Joe didn't vote you up there. And I hope that people come to their senses. They vote Mr. So-and-so. Mr. So-and-so ain't doing a damn thing for you. Ain't doing nothing. I don't understand, y'all, but let me tell you this. You're going to answer for it one day. It's coming back on you. I promise you. When you dig a hole for me, you better dig two. Because the Bible don't lie. Y'all better wake up. You better wake up. Everybody can get money. What are we paying taxes for? We pay taxes like anybody else and more. We live in the ghetto. We're paying Glenwood taxes. Ain't nothing in the ghetto worth over $100 taxes. Thousands of dollars you put on us. There are old folks out there can't afford what they're paying, and you up this, up that. That's all Joe knows, up tax, up that. When that garbage thing was, he shouldn't have raised nothing. He should have went out there and collected that money. But he had y'all behind him. Y'all was just as wrong as he was. Y'all don't seem to know right from wrong. So you don't have no business up there. What they vote for you up there, I don't know. It's like you're like a fox in the hen house. You put a fox in the hen house, you're not going to have very many live chickens in there because he's going to kill them because that's his nature. What is your nature? Y'all better wake up. God is going to get you. Believe me when I tell you. He's going to get you because you're a bunch of liars. We're going to do this. We're going to take the city from. The city is regressing. It's backing up. I hope now one of y'all up there be mayor. Because, hey, we'll be going back to slavery. And that's what they're trying to do. That new curriculum they got out, Common Cause or whatever it is, I don't care what you work out, how it come out wrong, it's right. Well, that's dumbing our kids up. Anybody go for something like that, and you're supposed to be intelligent people. I don't see much intelligence there. I'm not just saying y'all, because if the shoe fit, you wear it. God said, God is love, but y'all make it hard to love y'all. Not just y'all, them politicians in Washington and down in Harrisburg too.
Thank you for your time. Thank you. Any other citizens to be heard?
Whoa.
Name and address for the record, please.
Ben Pratt, 929 West 4th Street and 931 West 4th Street, whichever you want. I've lived in the city of Erie for the last 5 years. And prior to that, I lived here for 3 years. I attended Mercyhurst University. I am here as an active citizen. I volunteer on Erie Together Stewardship Team, the YMCA Downtown Advisory Board, the Walker School of Business Advisory Board. I am on the Our West Bayfront Advisory Council for their neighborhood plan and on their steering committee. I am, in many instances, one of the few 30-year-olds you will see there, and I can assure you after the 5 years of my active community work as in my current capacity as the Executive Director of the Growth Partnership Division of the Erie Regional Chamber, whom I am not representing today, I am specifically here as a citizen, I want to encourage City Council to specifically support the Community Development Block Grant submission for a code enforcement officer for the East and West Bayfront. It is through 3 years of planning that yielded the Destination Erie Regional Plan for Sustainable Development, where they identified code enforcement as a top priority. Our recent comprehensive plan for the City of Erie, a year in the making, has identified code enforcement is a top priority. Our West Bayfront's preliminary analysis, which all included all three of these studies that have spent tax dollars and community effort and volunteer hours, have all yielded code enforcement as a top priority for a number of reasons, many of which have been spoken about here by other citizens prior. The tax revenue that the city will gain will not increase until we start taking care of the properties that we have. And I'm encouraging City Council to not only accept the CDBG funds being used for a code enforcement officer, even introduce the opportunity for contingencies upon passing an ordinance for a land bank, and also moving forward to the mobilization of a housing court so that any type of code enforcement violations can be expedited, and those who are impacted by a code enforcement violation are held accountable in an efficient manner. I'd also like to add that on-site citations for code enforcement officers would be a profitable, could add profit opportunities for the code enforcement office, in which case they will not have to come back to City Council and use CDBG funding to fund a code enforcement office. I do want to express my support for other organizations in these neighborhoods and that are applying for CDBG funding. I do not envy your position at all. This is a very tough decision to make, but I can tell you that if you are looking for a long-term, sustainable opportunity for improving our tax base and our neighborhoods, we have to take a very strong, hard look at our code enforcement policies as they are being implemented today, and I would like to offer any type of support that I may provide in any capacity to help move those things forward for all of you. Thank you all for your time. Thank you, Mr. President, the Council, and Council in general.
Thank you. Any other citizens to be heard?
Good morning. My name is Erica Ramallo. I'm at 109 University Square. I am the Director of Community and Government Relations at Gannon University, and I'm here to thank you and the administration for your commitment to community. Serving in an elected position we know is no easy task. In the spring of 2015, our community completed the region's 25-year plan, Emerge 2040. This document was finalized after years of input from community members, hours of work by 5 leading partners, including the City of Erie, and a very large amount of financial support. One of the plan's recommendations is to defend neighborhoods and communities against decline by adopting a strategy to address decaying and abandoned properties through data collection, code enforcement, and creation of a housing court. More recently and geographically definitive, in March of 16, Erie received its first comprehensive plan and decision-making guide, Erie Refocused. One clear message from this plan is to turn Erie into a community of choice by improving the quality and appeal of its remaining supply and take advantage of the city's outstanding assets, making the city's housing, streets, parks, and economic opportunities highly desirable. As sales prices stagnate or fall, so do taxable assessments and municipal revenues, leaving fewer resources to maintain an aging infrastructure and to keep up with greater demands on police and fire services. Gannon has been an active participant in neighborhood planning for the neighborhoods surrounding our campus. In every one of the many community focus group sessions, proactive code enforcement has been identified as an area for improvement in every single meeting. How we measure progress of our city is important, and the decisions made will impact our progress. The plan calls for our city to measure impact by healthier community conditions that can be verified by rising property values, a stronger fiscal position, and location decisions made by households. These 2 guiding documents are intended to be a tool during tough decision-making conversations. Charles Buki warned us of these difficult conversations and encourages us to use these documents to persevere with the value of a healthier city in mind. We appreciate the fact that you are taking a first step to follow the guiding principles our comprehensive plan has recommended, and to please use it as the guiding document it was intended to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens to be heard?
Morning, Council.
Morning.
My name is Johnny Bryant. I'm at 913 State Street, apartment 603. I am here to talk to you as a citizen about our bus system. For someone who has to take the bus, not just to work, but to doctor's appointments. We've got family that lives out in the northeast area. We really do need these buses. Plus, for people's safety issues, some people having to take the buses to the hospital if they don't have a family in this area, or they don't have a neighbor that they know or trust enough to take. So we really do need to save these buses, not just for the city's sake, but also for the county's sake. As Amy mentioned earlier, I work up in the Summit area. So if I don't have that bus to take me up there, I don't have family in this state. I need buses to take me to work. And if we lose our bus system, a lot of the jobs up there are going to lose their employees because we won't be able to make it out of the city to work, and people who live in the county that work in the city won't be able to make it here if we cannot drive. And also, like I said, with the hospitals and stuff like that, people who live in the county, if they don't have a way to drive or they don't have somebody to drive them, if we don't have buses, that's going to put a lot of people at risk. They might not have a phone to call an ambulance or something like that. So I'm really hoping you guys will come to an agreement to save our bus systems, not just for the city, not just for the county, but for your citizens. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Paige Bosniak. I live at 231 Parade Street. I'm here today as both an employee of the East Bayfront neighborhood working for Bayfront East Side Task Force and a resident of the East Bayfront neighborhood. I wanted to speak today about the importance of code enforcement as a tool for ensuring safe, clean, and livable neighborhoods. When supported by the city, code enforcement can ensure that we not only maintain, but also improve our community. There are too many property owners who own property in the city, yet live nowhere near the city, profiting off of those who live there while they allow their buildings to decay. This not only affects those in decaying households, but also neighbors, as decaying buildings contribute to declining property values, and other factors, such as vacant buildings, lead to and facilitate crime. Code enforcement officers can be the advocates for neighborhood residents, addressing the issues that threaten the safety and quality of life for neighborhood and city residents. I encourage City Council today to support the Code Enforcement Department by giving them the capacity and the tools that they need to keep our neighborhoods clean and safe.
Thank you. Any other citizens to be heard?
My name's Michael Keys, 3612 Reed Street. I would like to address council about the block grant, as we refer to it, but it's the HUD block grant. It is not the city's money. And if you read the HUD guidelines, a lot of the things that are being used, like police overtime, are not considered acceptable usage for these funds. If the council have not read the HUD plan, well, not the HUD plan, but the HUD guidelines, I suggest each and every one of you read the HUD guidelines before you move forward in making your decisions. I think that one thing that is unacceptable is for police overtime. We're going to pay people who make $70,000 a year, which is twice the amount of the median income in our city, overtime, and we won't even mandate that they live in our city. At least if they lived in our city, we would be able to get a residual of that back. But all that money is being exported out of our city, and the HUD block grant is for the poor people. You are stealing from the poor people. It's for the people in the disenfranchised areas and for the poor people. Any other usage is unacceptable. As far as I want to talk about the code inspector. I think in this day and age that we have to get more mileage out of the inspectors we already have. In this economy, everyone is being asked to do more and give more with the resources they already have. But I know Mr. Brenneman wanted to carve out some money for set aside when you made your official budget and you said no. But now you have $70,000 for a code enforcement person who's going to take that $70,000 and move out to Mill Creek. But the thing is, if you take that $70,000 over the next 4 years, that's $280,000, and you still have to pay a pension. Why don't you take that money and put it in the redevelopment loan fund, which sits empty? You have a loan fund that has no funds to loan people to fix their houses, yet you want to hire someone and pay them to tell them that they can't fix their house. And I just really think that, I know the HUD guideline is 70% needs to be spent on the poor and in the disenfranchised areas. But I think in a poor city, in one of the most impoverished cities in this country, we should be looking at a goal of 99% given to the people, and none to city services, none to city overtime, and none to any other organization or person who isn't going to reinvest it in this city. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Any other citizens to be heard?
Good morning, Council. My name is Veronica Rexford. I live at 4124 Westridge Road, and I work at the Urban Area Community Development Corporation. This will be the fourth time I've been up here speaking to you, so forgive me if I'm somewhat repetitive. The assistant director at our center, her name is Wala Ahmad. You've seen her up here as well. She's originally from Eritrea, has lived in Iraq, was resettled in Erie when she was in high school, graduated from East, went on to go to Barron, graduated from Barron, and is now the assistant director of the center where I work. All 10 seniors that we have in our after-school program are graduating on time. At least 9 of them are enrolled in college for this coming school year. So far, 2 of them have earned free rides to school, one to Gannon and one to Penn State Barron. If that's not a shining example of what after-school programs are supposed to help our youth do, I don't know what else is. My question for you then is really going back to the priorities that we have as a community. If we make a priority for having a vibrant, healthy community, regardless of East Side or West Side, country of origin, religion, background, or skin color, then the priorities of where this CDBG money is allocated is not right. I realize we're on the eve of the vote at this point. I wish that we had all had the opportunity to discuss the allocation of these funds in an appropriate manner of community engagement many months ago. But as we don't, that's what I will leave you with. What are your priorities? Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Any other citizens to be heard?
Good morning, customers. My name is Barakat Berhe, and today I'm here talking about
address, please.
2009 East 18th Street.
Thank you.
Today I'm here talking about Quality of Learning Center. When I came 2011 to America. I came here knowing English, but because of Quality of Learning Center, I improved my English skills, and I went college. But when I heard you guys got the amount we had, Quality Life Center had, I was really surprised, because you guys telling us don't go to school, just you guys telling us sleep on the street. But today I'm here to beg you guys to help us to be what you guys today. Because of College Center, I'm on my way to achieve my goal. So today I'm asking you to help us the 60,000. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Good morning, City Council members. How you doing?
Good morning.
My name is Chantel Hilliard, Executive Director of the Booker T. Washington Center, 1720 Holland Street, Erie, PA 16503. As Ms. Rexford mentioned, I've been here every single time. It's public hearing meetings, and so excuse me if I say the same things as well. But I'm asking that you reconsider your dollar amount, not only for Booker T. Washington Center, but for all the other centers that represent this community. Okay, we are on the front lines every day, battling with the youth, with the adults, and whoever else comes into our facility that needs assistance. And when you give us $6,000 out of a $2.8 or $2.9 million budget, I'm concerned. And so we asked with our proposal for $15,000 for summer programming, and then we asked for an additional $81,000 for human resources, with collaboration with universities, other community-based organizations. And so we're not trying to do this alone. We can't do this alone. We need your assistance. We need the community's assistance. And so we rightfully ask that you reconsider your dollar amount for all of this neighborhood centers. Okay? And so, quite frankly, as we look at the programming, in light of and in lieu of what's been happening in our community with the spike in violence, there's not more of a time that we're needed than now. And so, we need to come together. When I mean we, I mean City Council, City Hall, neighborhood organizations, and whoever wants to partner with us, meaning the other centers as well. We welcome that. And we will follow any, as we have, rules, regs, whatever. Okay? I know for a fact the proposal that we submitted is solid. It's solid. Working with other partners and other agencies to track the data that is needed in order to be successful. And so there was an article that was just written about the three neighborhood centers and the viability of the three neighborhood centers. And I'm not going to point at any names, okay, in regards to their thoughts. But I want to say this. We're willing to work with anybody. And what organization hasn't had issues or problems? We're not the only nonprofits that are going through struggles in this city or in the country. So let's not get the fact or state or try to make it seem like it's just the three neighborhood centers. Okay? It's bigger than just the three neighborhood centers. But people want to shed light on the three neighborhood centers as if that's the only nonprofit struggling financially. That's not the truth. Yes, we have issues. The city has issues. The county has issues. So don't make our issues like it's the only issues out here. And so when we all have issues, guess what we should be doing? We should be working together as a group, unity. And when you have individuals point out certain things, that's fine. It's well and dandy. It's fair game. I respect that. But when are we going to stop looking at the past and think about the future? You can keep throwing stones all you want about my organization or any other organization that you want. But I'm going to tell you, I'm going to continue to come here and fight for mine in my community. And I'm an open book, meaning the Booker T. Washington Center, and I know the other organizations are as well. So if you want to help rather than throw stones, Sit down with me. Haven't got a call from the city. Nobody's called me from the city and say, how can we work together? If we know there's going to be funding cuts, and we know CDBG is continually being cut, I understand that. We understand that.
Thank you for your time.
But we need to work together. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Any other citizens to be heard? Any other citizens to be heard? Seeing none, we'll continue on with the meeting. Mrs. Roby.
Ordinances for final passage. I just want council to note that the amount listed on the agenda has changed for Council File 15950 from first reading from $4,345,000 to $4,290,000. Council File 15950, Official Ordinance Number 12/2016, an ordinance approving the plan of the Erie Sewer Authority for the issuance of an aggregate amount not to exceed $4,290,000 sewer revenue bond series of 2016 and setting forth the amount, interest rates, and maturity dates of the bonds, authorizing the authority to proceed with the plan of financing, authorizing the execution and delivery of a lease agreement and the incurrence of lease rental debt thereby, authorizing the specified officers of the City of Erie to prepare and certify the debt statement and to do all other acts necessary to carry out the provisions of the ordinance, setting forth the payment of the sewer revenue bonds and the source of such payments, repealing all inconsistent ordinances, and providing that the ordinance is effective immediately.
Mr. President, go ahead. Mr. President?
Mr. Witherspoon?
What was the nature of the change?
From
$1 figure to the other?
I think it was the amount that they actually sold the bonds for.
It was the amount not to exceed $4.3 million. They changed it to $4.29 million.
That was my question.
Not to exceed.
Why? What constitutes the change? What did they need? Something more?
No, they needed less. From 4.3 to 4.2.
Okay.
That's $100,000 less.
But was it just a mistake? Do we know?
Rose, you were the one who was at that meeting when they changed it. When they were in the back room, they didn't address why, other than they said that the interest rates are lower. That's why they said that they brought this to us, and they were going to save $252,000 by refinancing.
I'm good with that.
And they were going to use that $252,000 for capital improvements at the sewer department.
Okay, sponsored by Mr. Brennan, seconded by Mr. Kwiatkowski. The council file ordinance bill number 15950, and now known as official file ordinance 12/2016, be finally passed by the city council. Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Mursky. City council passed official file ordinance number 2012 of 2016 finally by yea 7, nay 0. Ordinances for first reading. Council File 15951, an ordinance of the City of Erie, Erie County, Pennsylvania, the city authorizing and directing the execution and delivery of a guarantee agreement with the Erie Parking Authority and compliance with the provisions thereof, approving the issuance by the authority of $8,260,000 guaranteed parking revenue bond series of 2016, repealing all inconsistent ordinances, directing the proper officials of the city to take necessary actions, and further directing that this ordinance shall take effect immediately. By Mr. Winarski and seconded by Mr. Kwiatkowski, that council file ordinance number 15951, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by the city council. Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Mursky.
Rose, just for the citizens to be aware, with this refinancing, we'd save $252,000 for the sewer authority on the refinancing. The parking authority is going to save $800,000 with the lower interest rates, and that was the reason for the refinance. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. City Council read and adopt council file ordinance number 15951 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. Council file 15952, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $199,819 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue from a System Firefighters Grant FEMA for the Bureau of Police, for the Bureau of Fire of the City of Erie. By Mr. Witherspoon and seconded by Mrs. Arrington, that file council ordinance number 15952, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by the City Council. Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Murski. City Council read and adopt council file ordinance number 15952 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. Second one.
Mr. President,
Jones.
I'd like to move the balance of the agenda.
So moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Kwiatkowski. Any separations?
Yes, I'd like to separate items 4 and 5 under new business.
Any other separations?
We need number 6 under new business.
Okay, so 4, 5, and 6. Any others? Seeing none?
Moving the balance of the agenda, Mrs. Arrington.
Mr. President, it's probably too late. I'm going to break Robert's rules right now. She started taking roll call. I had a question. Can we separate also number 1?
Number 1 we pulled.
We did. Oh, we did pull it? Oh, I didn't realize we did. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, roll call, moving the balance of the agenda, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Murski.
Oh, okay.
By Mr. Witherspoon and seconded by Mr. Kwiatkowski, resolved by the Council of the City of Erie that the proper city officials be and are hereby authorized and directed to execute an easement agreement on Peach Street between the City of Erie and the Tap Housing LLC, P.O. Box 9791, Erie, PA 16505, being the owner of and for the property located at 38 North Park Row, Erie, PA, in compliance with the attached city engineer's meets and bounds description, locating a sign mounted perpendicular to the building, planting areas adjacent to stairs, trash holding areas with a privacy fence, and awnings. Discussion?
Mr. Kwiatkowski.
Yes, I brought this up because I intend to vote for this, but I wanted to use this opportunity to bring to the attention of the administration that the reason why people apply for these easements are for very good reasons, to indemnify the city against any accidents and to properly work with the engineering office. And while I'm fully in favor of even more of these sidewalk cafes, etc., it came to my attention a few years ago and was brought to the attention of various people up in the administration that there's many out there operating without the easement. So I'm going to have the city clerk write a letter to administration recommending that we have a complete audit, which shouldn't take too long. Mr. Rocco could do that. At one time, there was approximately 50% of these properties, and like I say, I'm not against them, we don't charge them for it, but we need to be indemnified as a city against somebody walking into one of these. The people that are assisted, that need assistance are under the ADA. We need to know that they have enough room, because if anybody walks the street at night, sometimes these sidewalk cafes tend to immigrate out towards the street a little bit more than they should, and they tend to get out of control, and they never follow the dictates of the thing, which is some of them have to bring their stuff in at night. They're supposed to be kept at a certain distance. So I just want to say I'm in favor of it, but I'm going to ask for an audit to make sure that they're properly authorized by the city. And that will apply to number 5 also, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Witherspoon?
Yeah, I just want to hitchhike on Councilman Kotowski's statement. I did make a call to the administration. My concern is that there is enough room for at least 2 wheelchairs to pass at the same time, because you have the parking meters there, which is going to take up maybe a foot from the curve, and then I want to make sure that there's enough room for 2 just above normal wheelchairs, motorized, to go through without any problem, and I was assured that there was enough room. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is my time on council has been something I bring up every time one of these easements come up, and I really haven't gotten an answer that I'm really happy with or comfortable with fully on why we can't charge these businesses. I really don't get it. I don't understand it. And respectfully to Mr. Kotowski's comments, I agree with the indemnity comment that you made, but they're not. These businesses are not doing this out of the kindness of their gracious and magnanimous hearts. They're expanding their businesses, and they're receiving benefit from having a different amenity downtown for their business, and they're getting it for free. I'm not sure how that works. I've been asking this question for 10 years. And, well, it's a city. It's this language around, is it the city's property or not? I don't know what the answer is. But at some point, we got to stop giving the farm away for free. I mean, those are little things that add up, but these people are benefiting as a private business. It's not like 501c3s doing this. These are businesses who, if not given this easement or this opportunity, their business would be more restricted, thereby less customers, thereby less attractiveness. So they're getting a lot of amenity for free from the city who's struggling, and we're talking about whether we're going to give centers $6,000 or $3,000 or $20,000 or $50,000, and we're giving away stuff to businesses for free. And again, this is another opportunity to bring it up. I don't know. I mean, if there's a way that we say, we charge a certain fee on an annual basis, and that goes to a particular fund that goes to support something for kids or community, I don't know, but somehow we got to stop giving away so many things for free. I'm in support of it. I believe in expanding downtown business, all of that. I may be sitting out there too. That's not the point. The point is there any way to get something out of it for the city and the citizens as well?
Mr. President, I fully agree with Councilman Jones. In fact, we've talked about looking over the whole situation about, different sources of revenue. I'm fully in favor of this, about looking at it as a charge. Other communities do it as a method of processing fee and a little bit of revenue also for the city. I agree with you. They're out there and they're making money. And when you get involved on the state level about where you can serve alcohol, and it becomes very complicated. And then you wonder why some people, businessmen, leave the city because they try to do it the right way, and then we hop down on them. So I agree with Councilman Jones. We should have a system. We should charge for it, and do it the proper way.
If I can make a suggestion, if you would be agreeable to it, if you and Mr. Jones would get together, work with the Pennsylvania Municipal League, see what other municipalities have, and then maybe report back in caucus. All right, thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, just one more statement. I would like to see a resolution introduced and charge a fee for that service, and those who are there presently be grandfathered in.
Thank you, Mr. Witherspoon. Seeing no more discussion, we'll have the vote.
Roll call. Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Mursky. By Mr. Witherspoon, seconded by Mr. Kwiatkowski, that the proper city officials be and are hereby authorized and directed to execute an easement agreement between the City of Erie and EJH Entertainment, LLC, 8 East 10th Street, Erie, being the owner of 931 State Street, in compliance with the attached city engineer's meets and bounds description, locating the area for placement of tables and chairs. Discussion?
Any discussion?
I'll second it.
Seeing no discussion,
No?
call for the question.
All right. Roll call. Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Mursky. By Mr. Jones and seconded by Mr. Kwiatkowski. A resolution authorizing and directing the proper city officials for the mayor to file an application for financial assistance with the U.S. Department of HUD, which has indicated its willingness to make available a grant to carry out the CDBG program in the amount of $2,804,599, home in the amount of $657,989, and ESG in the amount of $252,664, and is further authorized to act as an authorized representative of the City of Erie to sign any and all documents in regards to these programs. Discussion?
Mr. President.
Mr. Jones.
Not to get soapboxy about it, I'll just take a moment, though. When budgets like this come to us, whether it be the city's general fund budget or general budget of the city every year, CDBG budget every year, there's always this caveat given to us by the administration, respectfully, that this is our proposal, but it has to come to you for a vote. And if you want to make changes, then it's up to you to make changes, and then you need to vote on it as amended or as suggested, and et cetera. It's very interesting, and sometimes I don't agree with some of the changes that are recommended, because one thing, if you want to move it from pot A, how do you get it from somewhere else, and all of that. But this, to me, and this opportunity with this particular CDBG budget is a chance for us to, albeit small in the grand scheme of things, to take a stand on a certain level, and without hurting anything that's already been pre-budgeted or has already been allocated or is expected to a particular, whether it be city department for the services that come through CDBG funding, or even other nonprofits. There is a block of money that has been, and we've heard about it today, it's been connected to this new code enforcement officer that has not been made a part of the previous budget that we know of. We ask every budget session, every department head, every representative of a department, what do you need? Do we need more? Are we looking for more? We're good with what we have. And I get it. You know what I mean? Because if you can't disagree with that, because that's the administration's, and that's being respectful and not facetious. I get it. It's part of the process. So I guess at some point, additional money or an idea to use some additional money came up to have a new code enforcement officer in the city. And I think in principle it's a great idea. I mean, all the folks who represented the pro side of the code enforcement or CDBG funds being used for code enforcement officer, great points and great organizations they represent. The other side to that conversation around code enforcement is that we have a reactive code enforcement department. In every bit of language we heard from citizens today, representing individuals or organizations, they talked about proactive code enforcement. Well, we don't do that in the city right now. I would be interested to see how much and how effective our code enforcement office could be and would be if they were more proactive, before we start adding on more reactive people to a department that's by nature and well, I'm going to say by nature, by our current setup and allowing to be reactive. So I said all that to say I'm not in support of maybe a few different parts of this proposed budget, but the code enforcement officer is my hang-up, and I would not be interested in supporting that. There have been some ideas and conversations amongst council sent to members of the administration, economic development department, on ideas and ways we'd like to reuse or rearrange some of those funds that have been not already budgeted. And wouldn't hurt any department or even any organization that is expecting funds, would only add to organizations. For example, every organization that we've considered and asked and are proposing to make changes to are all organizations that work on the grassroots level, on the ground level with our young people. We say, our kids and our young people, they need this, they need that, and I get it, sometimes we don't have money or we don't allocate for them, or I'll say this, or we think if we do this big thing, it'll trickle down to help them. But we don't have time to deal and wait for the trickle down of code enforcement officer to improve a neighborhood that's going to make kids' environment better, which is then going to change their mind, which then their mind's going to change and they're going to do better. We don't have time for that. We need some intervention, and our grassroots nonprofit city organizations that are working with youth, we need to infuse them with something to help in the intervention. And I think this is an opportunity to do that. So, again, I would be voting no for this resolution as is, but I would support some previously discussed changes to the proposed budget. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Mr. President.
Mrs. Arrington.
I'm in agreement with Mr. Jones, and my thing with the code enforcement position, that position should come out of the general budget. The money for the CBDGs is already misused. Everybody needs to take a look at what's going on out here in our community. It's not even summer yet, and not even $100,000 of $2.8 million goes for prevention. It's sad. And I'm talking about jobs, I'm talking about activities. Whatever we can do to keep these kids busy, that's what we need to do. And I'm glad to hear about the program with the police officers, bringing that athletic program back, because our kids and police officers do need to have a relationship with each other. And we have met and want to make amendment to the CBG monies. But we have to unify as a community. Not even $100,000 out of $2.8 million. I don't understand that. You have the law enforcement side, you have the prevention side. You can't law enforcement don't work without the prevention side. We need a lot more to go towards our prevention side. We have all these nonprofits out here. There's a lot of people out here doing good jobs. And I'm an advocate for youth. I'm for anybody out here who is trying to help keep these youth on a positive path to success. Whatever we need to do as a council to help our community overcome this wave of violence and all these other different issues that we have going on, we need to do. We need to redirect a lot of that CDBG monies and put them where they really need to be and where they should be in our community, helping our community and helping our children, helping our community centers, helping anybody out here that's trying to help our youth become a move for success. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Arrington. Just a little clarification. You do realize that only 23%, we're grandfathered in at 23% of our CDBG money can be used for social services, and we are maxed out. We did put in the full capacity for that 23%. Most communities are at 15%, but because we go back to 1982 and previous community development block grant money, we were allowed to use that funding stream at 23%, which is at capacity right now. So in order for us to move, we would have to move within that area, take away from another social service to give to another social service. Any other council comments?
Question, clarity. So we received correspondence from the Economic Development Office around this initial proposal. And I don't have to put anyone on the spot, but we're all at work today, I guess. So Mrs. Green, can she come up?
Ms. Green, would you please come up?
And give clarity to the question?
Good morning, Mr. President and members of council. Actually, Mr. Jones, you are correct. I did send an email around or a memo around to everyone. At one time, and I thought that had cleared this up, we are actually grandfathered, and so we can use the amount of funding that we had in 1982 for public services. Anybody else coming into the CDBG program since 1982 is limited to only use 15% of their allocation for public services. We are allowed to use the amount that we allocated in 1982, either the percentage or the amount. So in the case, in going back and looking at our records from 1982, we got $5 million that year. This year we're getting $2.8 million. So the percentage that we funded public service with was 22.6. However, that amount was just a little over $800,000. So if you look at what we have budgeted for public service this year, we are within that 22.6% that we have always stayed within, which means you're correct, Mr. President. And if we go over that, we would be going above the percentage. And we've never done that before. However, it's allowable because, as I said, in 1982, we funded at 800, and I think it was 816,000 actually. This means that as our CDBG funds are reduced year by year, if we get down to a point where we're only getting $1 million in community development block grant funds, it's allowable that you could spend 23% or the equivalent of $816,000 on public service. So it is allowable.
Ms. Green, do any other municipalities in Erie or in Pennsylvania use their community block grant money for social services?
Some do.
Okay.
Some do. I will tell you, from the county's perspective, the county gets CDBG funds. Mill Creek gets CDBG. There are communities within the county that get CDBG funds. I'm not aware of any of those funds that go to support any public services other than perhaps maybe one senior center that I'm aware of. But other than that, they use their funding to do slum and blight removal, housing, streets, sidewalks, sewers, things like that.
Do you have just point of clarification? What's the process? Is this a competitive process for these grant applications?
Yes, it is a competitive process. We put we put out for applications at the beginning of December, and we give everybody 2 months to get their applications into us. We go back and we review those applications every year to make sure we're asking the right questions that HUD is asking us to ask. So sometimes we alter the applications year to year, and then we send them out, and everybody gets them back to us by the end of January. And then my staff, the Economic and Community Development staff, review those applications, and we look at everything in the application to make sure that they've met the criteria. We rate well, we judge the applications based on each other. Quite frankly, there are a lot of mistakes on the applications. I'd be hard-pressed to find more than maybe a half a dozen of them that don't have mistakes. So mistakes are common. We expect that we will see some mistakes. But we do try to kind of rate them against each other, and we try to give preference to those that really seem to know the program and understand what we're seeking as far as the Community Development Block Grant funding goes.
Any other questions for Ms. Green?
If I could, just go ahead. Sorry.
I just had a quick comment. I know, Mr. Mayor, we talked about the process, and there's maybe we should be asking more questions. But I do think, as we discussed already, that we should have maybe a work session before we release everything and say this is where we're going up, putting the money, instead of kind of the process now is we get to the results of the testing and the grading's already been done, and then we kind of have to look at it, and it's kind of down the road further. So I think, like you said, I think we need to have the communication early, and maybe we'd have a session where we just meet in your office or meet here for a work session and kind of review that process.
Certainly welcome.
So that we know more, because I think sometimes maybe you think maybe we know those things, or maybe we should be asking more questions, maybe, but I think that needs to definitely occur in the future.
And that's, I'm perfectly fine with that, and I thought that I'd always kind of shared that City Council is always welcome to come to my office. You're certainly welcome to look at any of the applications that we get in. That's all public information as far as I'm concerned. There are regulations. I mean, our job in that department is to follow the regulations, and I have Allison Schmidt with me. Allison, just... And I want to bring this up today. Allison's from my office, but I want to bring this up today because I think there was much misinformation during the public comment period about the CDBG program. Those 3 books represent the regulations that we have to abide by with CDBG. So I don't want to take away from the complexity of the issue and how complicated the issue can be in regards to what we are allowed to fund and what we are not allowed to fund, and what we must track and what we must report back to HUD. We have tried to be very inclusive. CDBG, in my opinion, and in the opinion of HUD, has never been misused in this community. CDBG, all of our budgets that we've ever put forward have always met the guidelines of CDBG. You might not like particular items in the budget, but I just want to be very, very clear that the CDBG fund has never been misused. As I said, Council can always review those apps. However, this period in time, Council chose not to review all of the applications. I did get a request from Mrs. Arrington asking to look at a few of them, let's put it that way, but certainly not all of them. So any decisions that are going to be made up there today are being made without the benefit of having looked at all of the applications and rated them against each other. And I caution you that I think that sets a dangerous precedent for how we decide how we are going to use this funding to support our community. I think that there's an unfairness about that. For instance, there are people that applied that their applications were not even reviewed by anyone on Council, and yet Council has decided that there's a few, and I don't know which ones they are at this point, but there are some that you're going to want to fund, and perhaps others that you didn't even consider. And that kind of takes away from the whole process of having a competitive application process. I also would like to say that I have some serious concerns about some of the applications, so I'm curious to see which organizations or which line items Council is considering funding, because I have not been made aware of what those changes would be at this point. But I do have serious concerns in regards to some of the applications. There's information missing. Some of them have budgets that don't balance. We look at previous results of organizations and how they've performed in the past, and we take that into consideration. I don't think that those things are being considered. In some of the applications, there are explanations lacking of how the funds will be used. Some of the applicants are requesting funding for things that are not even allowable items by HUD. For instance, HUD never allows us to fund food. One of the applications includes a line item for $5,000 worth of food. I take the work that I do very seriously. I think that we do it very fairly. I run a professional department, and I believe that this is all very, very serious. It's a very limited amount of money that we have to put into our community. The recommendations that we make based on fact and data. And so those are my concerns at this point, Mr. President, members of council.
Any other questions?
Ms. Green, now all this could have been avoided if when the application came out, and we only up here part-time, if the administration would have notified City Council and let us know that the applications were in, and we all sat down and we all discussed this together, because what you fail to realize is that administration makes the decisions. Then we get the backlash of it all. When our citizens come in here, their comments is directed towards City Council. A lot of things that go on upstairs, we don't know till after the fact. And what I'm saying to you, for future references, let's sit down together and go over these applications, and then everybody will get a fair shot. I mean, I'm looking at public safety in our community. You know, a lot of our kids, they're in the community centers. You know, we'd rather have our kids in the centers doing something positive, whether it's working, whether it's activities, jobs. That's what I looked at when I made the recommendation that I made for the ones that I pulled out of there. But at the end of the day, to avoid what we're doing now in front of our citizens, let's sit down beforehand and make the decisions together. Thank you.
Mr. President.
Mr. President, could I just, and happy to do that. I thought that that's what we had done actually when I came before council at your study session and showed you what we had anticipated funding. This is the way that, and I hate to say this is the way it's always been done, but this is the way that this program has always operated based on the regulations with HUD. We submit our budget, we put it in the paper, and then there's a period of public comment. Before we put it in the day before we put it in the paper, we come to council to say this is what we're putting out there, and then there's a period of time where we could go back and make any changes that may be necessary. What you're suggesting is that you sit down with the administration, review all of the applications, and hammer that out. I'm not prepared to speak to whether or not that would be something that the administration would be comfortable with. If they would, I'd be fine with that. I'm just, again, doing it the way that the process has worked in the past, and that it's always worked in the past. We've never had any issues where we've gotten to this point in the process and had questions about changing items on the budget.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Okay.
Once again, I hear the prevailing theme. Ms. Green, you and I have argued many times. This is a different council. It may not seem it to some people out there, but we don't want to hear about the old days anymore. Okay? As the late Mr. Komorek said, just because we did it that way for many years doesn't make it right, and just because other councils may have allowed it, this is an evolving council. I'm very proud of them. I may still have to vote for this tonight. I don't know. But the problem is that here we are once again, 11th hour of the 11th month, and we're up against the wall, and like you say, well, I come to you the day before. No, it's got to be a little before that. And as far as the administration, you know, we're all supposed to be equal partners. And if I hear one more employee say around this building that I work for the administration, it's going to turn me really, I'm going to go violent, okay? Because that's wrong. We all work for the same people. And that's whatever the number is right now, 101,000 or 95, whatever we decide on, okay? This stuff about I work for the mayor, I work for the administration, no. That doesn't go anymore, okay? We want to be part of the process. Now, when the question came up about the code enforcement officer, I have a lot of problems with it because we had a very good program laid out at Mercier's where they paid for a code enforcement officer to take care of the problem up on East 38th with the college kids. And to this date, nothing really happened. Very few charges were filed, very little done, a little smoke and mirrors. So what makes you think that I'm going to sit here and take a leap of faith that this new code enforcement officer is going to be a little more than maybe a shield for Gannon or for Erie Insurance, and they'll get a little response, but the average citizen all around the city, and you wonder why they complain. You can listen to my talk show, you can go to breakfast with me, but they feel, like Councilman Jones said, that this is a reactive group that does nothing. And as you ride around town, I got to agree with them. I've called them, and you know what they tell me? Well, we'll get back to you. And they don't even get back to me, and I'm a councilman. I'm a councilman, and they don't get back to me. So what chance have these people got? And you want us to take a leap of faith and hire a guy at $70,000 or a woman, okay? Each one of those officers should be proactive. And we can't do that here. That has to come from upstairs. Just a simple thing like get off your butt, take the desks and the chairs away from the office, and get them out in the street where they belong. I don't have to drive around anywhere to see that there's blight in the city. I can look in my neighborhood, which is supposed to be one of the better ones, according to this study, and I get a blighted house. Now, how long is it before I get a second blighted house? And then this woman that was out there talking about Parade Street, I've taken that ride. I've been down to 4th and Walnut, okay? So I do hope that if you do get your code enforcement officer, I don't want to hear that they're sitting around the office and they're doing this and that. I want to see the other 5 or 6. I want to see them on the street also, because there's no excuse. When I got to come down 12th Street and look at that building, the Dresden War Museum, or whatever you want to call it, the bombed-out remnants of a building, or anything else around town.
Yeah.
I mean, here we are, and this is unfortunate that now we got a decision to make because we're up at the last minute. So I do hope next year things change a little bit and that we're part of the process a little early so that we can have some constructive criticism and not kind of like, well, you got to hurry up and make a decision. That's my 2 cents.
Absolutely. And if I could just say, we are taking steps to make sure that some of those issues that you've brought up are addressed. One of the things that my department has been doing is working with the Code Enforcement Office to get tablets for all of our code enforcement officers. And so those officers will now be able to be out on the streets with their tablets and be able to put the violations immediately into the system. It will immediately print back here at City Hall, and the violation will be sent to the person. In the past, they've had to go out and do the violations, come back to the office, go through their notes, write up the violation. So we're really hoping that some of these technological advances that we're working on are going to help to improve the ability of the Code Enforcement Office to act more proactively, and that would also be our goal, is that they would be more proactive. With that said, and I know I don't want to belabor the point, but I know that you did hear from some people today, and I would be remiss if I did not mention that the city's comprehensive plan that we've spent a lot of money on, that will be coming before you next month, and that was passed by the Planning Commission, Erie Refocused, a community decision-making guide, tells us that there are 4,700 vacant units in the city, 1,900 of them are abandoned, and almost 10,000 homes in our city with signs of distress. This deterioration, disinvestment, and plummeting confidence, people are losing money on their home sales as they try to sell their homes, and in some cases this is the only equity that people have and the only savings that they have is in their homes, and they're losing money because of the condition of the neighborhoods and adjoining properties. Mr. Buki warned us in his plan that this was going to take a lot of courage and that it was going to require hard decisions to be made. And so now, as I come before you with the request for an additional code enforcement officer, I would just remind you, and I know that you all have copies of the comp plan and you're reviewing that, but there were two things specifically that he said don't do. He said don't spread limited resources. That will ensure that nothing receives a truly transformative level of investment. It feels fair, but it is neither sustainable nor effective. He also said that reacting to problems rather than building on the strengths that we have leads to a perpetual state of crisis management and steers attention and energy away from the city's strengths. This plan gives us an outline for decision making and allows us to begin to believe in the possibilities that we have as a city.
You cannot speak right now. Thank you.
Destination Erie and the Erie Comp Plan are something that I'm very, very proud of. I was proud to be part of that. And I would hope that as you're making your decisions here today, that you would consider that document as you make your decisions. The only other thing that I would ask, at this point, I don't know what you're going to do. But we have to have a balanced budget. We have to submit that to HUD by May 12th. If we don't submit it to HUD by May 12th, we have to give them their 45-day comment period. If that's extended, people who are depending on this funding to fund their programs beginning with the summer rec programs, those funds will not be available because we will have gone beyond the deadline. So I caution you to be wary of that.
Mr. President,
Mr. Jones.
We belabor much less important points, so respectfully, I don't mind having this further conversation. So part of what I want to say is, first of all, my intention and my conversation and my comments were not an indictment on city staff. Kim Green, Mrs. Green's department, Andy Zimmerman, code enforcement, I'm saying that certain things can be tweaked within the department before adding staff and manpower to the department. And I think we'd all agree on that. The second thing, I would never say, personally, that code enforcement officers don't do anything, they sit around, don't do anything. I think the system is set up in such a way that they do their job well the way the system is set up. But that's probably the problem, the way the system is set up for them to do their job. And I'm glad to hear the proactive approach that's being taken with the technology, et cetera. Also, this is not about my intention. Again, I can only speak for myself, but I think I can speak for some of us who've had different conversations. Is not an intention to change or do anything outside the realm of what is appropriate and what is possible. And with that said, again, HUD has to approve what you all submit, or we as a city submits. So to make the comment that we're misusing HUD funds is although we disagree with some of the decisions, HUD has to approve it. So it can't be too much of a mismanagement of their funds if they approve what we submit. I think that's a valid and necessary point to make. But this is a unique session because this is different. Normally, and also, I don't want to do this every day. I remember a few years ago, I was a department head, and I was on the board, and I read every application. I had to almost take a time off my regular job to do that. I don't think we as part-time council members and full-time employees in other spaces have the opportunity or the time to get into all of that. I think it would be good to give us the opportunity, and we should be proactive ourselves to go do that. I agree with that. But here's my thing. All the extra frills and thrills of this conversation have been one thing, but what I want to get back to is, even if the system is the way it is, your staff, the administration, put together your proposal, your budgets, et cetera, you brought it to us. And with every other budget we get, when it's brought to us, we're now told that we have the opportunity to make changes, adjustments, allotments, blah, 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 to modify it to what we, as a collective body, or at least a vote of 4 at least, will agree on. This usually doesn't happen, though, because we are usually, at least a majority, are willing to go with, because we're always usually at some level involved in the process or agree with the administration's, suggestions, and maybe we tweak some things that are minor here or there. But this is different because we can make this change or make these changes in the budget without touching anything that has already been allotted for. And what I mean by that is there is no code enforcement officer right now that we need to pay for. That's something that we're adding on because we feel like there's more money available to do that. I would rather invest, give more opportunity, give another opportunity to organizations that are specifically working with kids and youth on the ground in our community. That's my intention around this. And it doesn't take from any other group. It doesn't mess with our numbers, and it doesn't mess with our allotment allowances and percentages and amounts. It doesn't do any of that. It doesn't take from any group that's already expecting money that's in the CDBG fund or budget for this year. Doesn't do any of that. What it does do is it makes the city have to be maybe a little more creative, proactive with a city department versus paying for another city position out of CDBG funds. And I think that's worthy of the conversation, and worthy of at least putting it up to a vote. So those are just my kind of final comments on why.
And you're right that this year we were very fortunate that we were able to take some additional funds that we typically had put into the curb ramps, because we've done such a really good job at meeting the goals that we had with the curb ramps, that we were able to take some of that money and use it in other areas. And that was one of the thoughts, I think, behind the idea of funding the YMCA at $50,000, because again, they came in and talked with us and took us up and showed us their program, and showed that they were working with children, teens, not just children, teen children from across the whole community, and we're bringing them in by bus, and let us know that if we were able to fund them, that was a program that they could expand and allow any teenager in the city of Erie that chose to participate to be able to participate. And so that was one of the reasons why, and in thinking about the children and the needs of the kids, that was really one of the reasons why we put that forward in the budget this year also.
Yeah, and Mr. President, there's a certain amount of precedent for this as well, to make use of directly into community centers and youth-based organizations. We did this when there was some money that we transferred over 5, 6, 7 years ago out of CDBG. It was like $91,000. The city, the administration, and council made a decision to throw that almost, $90,000+ into community, directly into the community centers, trying to work cross, this area does a specialized thing and this one does a specialized thing, and we transfer and transport kids from, JFK to MLK to, different groups. So this is not like an unusual, never seen before thing. I think the priority of the administration at that time allowed for them to make that suggestion. This time it didn't. But the priority of council at this time is to make this suggestion in contrary or in negotiation about this budget. So I don't think it's a bad thing. It's not confrontational. It's just the negotiation process. And I don't know. We have to see how it plays out. But I think this is, again, it's not the first time something like this has been done directly for community centers or community groups or organizations around youth with this administration.
Any other questions for Ms. Green? Ms. Green, just stay put for a minute.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, we'll call for the question.
Well, do we know what it is? I have to just.
No one's made any.
I'm sorry. Just to be clear,
is there an amendment to be made? I think this Mrs. Arrington talked to the city clerk. I don't mean to speak for you. I apologize.
Go ahead.
Because I think part of the thing is too, respectfully, is that this has been several weeks now. There was some correspondence sent, and I didn't send it, so I don't know exactly the language. But there was correspondence sent to the administration via the Economic Development Office on the changes we wanted to make, the additions, and so if that's not the case. Well, it has to be the case because we got a response on it. So
it was a memo from Mrs. Arrington to the other council members and to myself. I did not know that there was any consensus at all on council to move forward with any of those suggestions. But if there is, I'd like to know, I'd like to hear that. And
I was under the impression in the caucus meeting when you were there last meeting that we agreed to just pass this for this year, and next year, starting in January, work with Ms. Green to change the system for next year. That was the understanding that I had when.
Who said that?
I never said that.
I guess when we assume, but I don't mean to be disrespectful at all. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but
Excuse me, Mr.
there was never a vote or a comment or a conversation around that.
Nor could there
There has
be.
been.
Nor could there be
There
if it were
has
not
been.
done in public.
Here's what I am saying, and I was late. I was teaching a class. I apologize. I was late, but I've also had several other meetings with individuals, administration folks, as well as council members, and we've had conversations around this, and this has not been done in secret. Like, we've been sending memos and emails and questions and comments. So again,
This is the, go ahead.
this is the what? I mean,
This is the first I'm hearing of it other than from Ms. Roby on Tuesday when we went over the.
so we have not had any conversation as a group around change. Okay.
About the amendment being presented to council.
Okay.
This is the first I'm hearing of it.
All right.
From any council people.
Interesting conversation. Because, again, this has been dialogued and conversated about and made suggestions. You've actually, Mr. President, made comments to Ms. Arrington in particular about if you're going to do something, make sure it's done in the appropriate way so there's no questions about different things. And, I mean, that was a part of the conversation. And there was memos sent and letters sent at that time or shortly after with suggestions for change. I'm not sure. Maybe respectfully, I'll put this on Mrs. Arrington because she's the newest member. She's kind of been spearheading, so maybe there are some logistical issues she didn't maybe get or know right away. But this hasn't been done, again, in a vacuum. Like, it's been sent out. We've had conversations. We've had memos sent. And, again, like to quote Mr. Witherspoon, we either voted up or down. But I think the conversation has been very open and very clear. And this is a belaboring point right now, but I think the question is out there to move forward or not, and that's what we need to answer today.
If anyone's making a motion, make it now.
I want to make a motion for an amendment.
State your amendment.
It has to be read by Rose.
No, you can do it. It's your proposal.
I don't have a copy of it. Do you have
All right,
a copy?
here you go.
She gave it to you.
You need a second.
I'll second.
Well, let's read the motion first, please.
Okay. Please.
I'm recommending the following funding changes to the Department of Economic and Community Development Second-Year Annual Action Plan FY 2016 by eliminating and proposed code enforcement position and making changes in the funding to the following centers. Booker T. Washington Center from $6,000 to $12,000. MLK Center from $6,225 to $12,000. Early Connections, $12,000. Nurturing Hearts, $7,500. Urban Erie Community Center, $12,000. Youth Leader Institute, $5,000, totaling $60,500, and amending the application for the financial assistant with the U.S. Department of HUD to include these changes in the CDBG program.
Mr. President,
Ms. Green.
those changes actually are not $60,000. Those changes add up to $48,275 increase. So what I need to know in order to prepare this budget would be what the amendment would include as far as where that money is taken away. We have $70,000 that I've heard you talk about in regards to our code enforcement officer. If you take this amount that you're proposing, $48,275 from code, it leaves a balance of $21,725 that I don't know what I'm supposed to do with.
Mrs. Arrington.
Well, we can give them a little more. Split it up and give them a little more, or we can find another organization that need it.
All right, and can I also then, since I now know who you want to fund, can I also bring a couple of other issues up that are concerns of mine?
Please.
You are requesting more money for one of these agencies than they even asked for. The application has to lay out how these funds will be spent. In the case of one of your applicants on here, They have requested over $5,000 to provide food to a program that meets 3 half-days a week for 8 weeks in the summer. They can't use that $5,000 for food. So I can't.
There's more to it.
We're going to violate the guidelines if we fund that. HUD's going to reject that. Is that what you're saying?
I wouldn't be able to put that in because I know that it goes against the guidelines. So that would have to be changed. All of these budgets for all of these organizations will have to be changed. The 4 that you mentioned, Early Connections, Nurturing Hearts, Urban Erie, and the Youth Leadership Institute, all have not received funding in the past, and so we're going to now fund them. That means that we're going to have to develop contracts for all 4 of these based on their budgets. But their budgets and the information, as I said, that was provided to me is problematic. I also think that introducing this amendment could possibly be an issue with HUD in regards to a conflict of interest provision, because in the Booker T. Washington Center's application, our CDBG money is being used to provide funding as a portion of someone's pay that is also being funded by Mrs. Arrington's program.
No, that's not true. OCY funds my program.
Well, according to the application, and I'm happy to share it with you, it says that the program is funded by LEAD and by CDBG, this particular position.
OCY funds my program 100%.
But it is your program.
The LEAD program is.
So my question would be, I think that we may have a conflict of interest here, in which case we need to take that to HUD and have HUD come back to us with...
Order, please. Order. No shouting out. This is a meeting.
Excuse me, Ms. Green.
Just legally, we would have to take that to HUD for a determination on whether or not that was a conflict of interest. They would have to make that determination, and that's a 45-day period.
Here's a question, Mr. President, if I could. If I could, the question of inappropriateness in a different way, conflict of interest, we're not talking about funding an organization that was not on the list to fund. We're talking about giving more to an organization that you've already decided to fund at X level. We're seeing X level times 2.
Right.
So it's interesting that the issue now is coming up about any kind of inappropriateness or conflict of interest, when at 6 months ago or whenever this budget was done, that didn't seem to be a question or that was brought up, but now it's seeming to be a tool utilized to show respectful. I mean, and if I'm wrong, I'm just saying, we're talking Booker T. Washington Center,
and
right? Hold on 1 second, please. Because you know you're my girl, but we at it right now. You're talking about Booker T. Washington Center receiving X amount of funding, and then we reference Booker T. Washington Center, who's on this list for additional funding beyond your budgeted proposed funding. So if it's a conflict for additional, why was it not a conflict for initial? Now, there may be a legit answer for that. I don't know what it is, but it's awfully interesting to me.
It would only be a conflict if it was voted on, right, Mr. Zach? Everyone's free to abstain.
Well, certainly.
Like when my mother-in-law worked at the bank, I had to abstain, even though I didn't get any money from the bank.
Of course, everyone has a right to abstain.
Again, Mr. Jones, I did look this over very closely in the last few days because, as you said, I did get the memo from Councilwoman when she asked that everybody get copies of those that she wanted to fund. I looked them over very closely, and I did see that. At the time I went through it, it was very small. It said LEAD, and I didn't know what that was, to be honest with you. But in looking back and reading through the application, I saw that this LEAD stood for the name of, and quite frankly, I didn't know that was Mrs. Arrington's program. I knew that she had some programs at the Booker T. Center, but I didn't know that the name of it was LEAD. And correct me if I'm wrong on that name, but where is it at? The main goal of the LEAD program is to reduce risk factors, so and so. But I didn't know that was Mrs. Arrington's program.
So we're saying that we didn't do due diligence. I mean,
You're correct. I made a mistake in that area because
and that's
I
okay.
did not
And
know
mistakes
that,
are
and
a
I'm
part of
glad
the
that I
process.
caught it.
And mistakes are part of the process. And so, again, prioritizing and having a different perspective is also part of the process. And I think part of what's happened is that, again, some of this probably could have been hashed out if there was more clarity in, respectfully, Mrs. Arrington, understanding the process and nuanced some of this stuff. And I'm not minimizing you at all, but just you're spearheading as the newest council member. But with that said, we can't use one thing to deny the increase, and you didn't ask, or the question wasn't asked for the initial allocation or proposed allocation. To me, that's just, it's kind of like, smack you on the other side because you disagree. And that's what it comes across as to me, personally. I can't speak for anybody else. It comes across to me in that manner.
Again, it was brought to my attention. I have no idea what boards or organizations the members of City Council are on. There would be no way that I would know that.
Right.
It was brought to my attention that this lead program was Mrs. Arrington's program. I did not know that until just within the last several days.
And so if we did not disagree as certain members of the council did not disagree and ask the question, then the issue's never brought up. It's interesting that it's brought up now when we have a disagreement with the proposed budget of the administration. So whoever told you that knew that before. It's like and again, we've had conversations about this before.
Quite frankly,
well.
though, they may not have known that the funding was going to be used for the LEAD program. I checked the budgets yesterday to see if any of the funding that the Booker T. Center was asking for was going to this LEAD program, and that's when I discovered that, yes, there were employees that were being paid from both LEAD and CDBG. And, well, that's what the application says.
One more thing, Ms. Green. And you mentioned some of the people that I had on my list never being funded from the CBG monies. What about the Teen Center? It's their first time being funded. Why are they any different from anybody else?
You are correct. We have historically, though, funded the Y over the years. They did the Roger Young Pool program, and they've been someone that we've funded for summer rec for years and years and years. So they're well aware of our guidelines, and we know what their track record's like.
This is the Teen Center, just like my program is the LEAD program. Okay, they under the Y.
Right.
So they're not different from any other.
But the Y would be the ones submitting their payrolls and submitting the documentation that we need to give to HUD. And all I would respectfully say to you is that we felt that they had done this before, and they had a very, very good track record, the Y, at providing the information that we needed.
Mrs. Arrington, a couple questions with this amendment. How were the groups that you chose selected?
Because they work with kids. It's about the youth. Look at what's going on in our community out here.
Why? Okay.
Because a lot of these.
Why was the Trinity Center excluded, the Boys and Girls Club excluded, the Sisters of St. Joseph Neighborhood Network Youth Center excluded?
Well, Sisters of St. Joseph, this got $600,000, so I don't think they needed it.
Actually,
okay.
So you just picked on who you thought needed it?
No, I didn't do that. And, okay, if you're saying that I did it, then I can say that administration.
I'm just asking how the group.
Because these are the community centers where I know that kids are every day after school. Because I know this, I see this. I go to these different community centers.
I was just curious why the Trinity Center was excluded and the Boys and Girls Club, because I know youth go to.
Well, hey, take that other $21,000 and give them something, okay? Then they'll all be included.
The other question I have, or the concern, is because Mrs. Arrington, excuse me, if we're going to have conversations, can you please take them in the hallway? Thank you. When looking over the applications that you requested, some of the numbers didn't add up on some of the applications. Like, for example, the one had a salary of $54,000 in the one column, but then when it came down to the second page where you put the salary, it was like $100,000, $190-something thousand. And go ahead, you were interrupting.
I was just going to say, as I said at the beginning, there are mistakes amongst all of the applications. So we don't disqualify people based on that. So we would not disqualify someone just because they had a mistake on their app. We would try to work with those organizations so that we can get the correct information, make sure that they give us good applications next year. So I don't think that there's anything more that I can really add to this.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President, I guess my concern, Mrs. Arrington, is that we're picking winners and losers without the information from all of the organizations. And I think that's, I don't think that's a good practice to start. And that's my concern.
Well, Mr. President, you know, it's sad when we have to debate this in front of our citizens. Either we're going to vote it up or we're going to vote it down.
Well, and I think, too, respect for Mr. President, if I could, this isn't, like, as I mentioned before, this isn't the first time something like this has happened. There was I can't remember exactly how many years ago, but there was money that was unused in previous years that was consolidated, brought forward to that current year, and there was a carte blanche decision by the administration, not with an application. There was no application for this process. It was some conversation around, we've got $91,000 to be able to infuse into community organizations, many of which are still in the conversation for today. So again, this is not new ground. This is just ground that the administration didn't suggest this time.
Well, I think, thank you, Mr. Jones.
Yeah.
I think when Mrs. Carpenter, this isn't the time. We had citizens to be heard. We're discussing. No, Mrs. Carpenter.
In Robert's Rules
you
of
have to
Order,
please.
Point of question to call.
Please sit down. Please sit down. I have the floor.
300,000.
I have the floor. Please sit down. Thank you. Thank you. Respectfully.
Amy, the chair can overrule Robert's Rules of Order. He has the power to do that. Thank you.
My concern with taking the money from the code enforcement officer is the comprehensive plan was almost universally praised throughout the community as the blueprint for transforming Erie. Universally, very few people criticized the plan as this is the way forward. We understand Erie could go the way of Detroit or it could go the way of Pittsburgh. The code enforcement officer is the first step in impacting substantial change for the better, not just for hundreds of residents, for thousands of residents across some of our most blighted areas of the Lower East Side and Lower West Side. No one is denying that the programs that are up for consideration for funding are not good programs or are good programs. We know they're good programs. And we know there's dozens of more other good programs out there that also are not getting funded from community block grant money. Not partial funding or any funding. But I remind you, Charles Bukey said, if you keep doing what you've always been doing, you're merely managing decline. And I would love to fund everybody. I would love to. But we can't manage decline in this community any longer. We can't. And so with that, we'll call for the question.
What are we?
The amendment.
Amendment.
Okay. Proposed amendment by Mrs. Arrington, seconded by Mr. Jones, recommending the following funding changes to the Department of Economic and Community Development Second-Year Annual Action Plan for the year 2016 by eliminating the proposed code enforcement position and making changes in the funding to the following centers. BTW Center from $6,000 to $12,000, MLK Center from $6,225 to $12,000, Early Connections to $12,000, Nurturing Hearts to $7,500, Urban Erie Community to $12,000, and Youth Leadership Institute for $5,000, and amending the application for financial assistance with the U.S. Department of HUD to include the changes in the CDBG program. Mrs. Arrington?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes, I vote out loud because we did this time.
Mr. Kwiatkowski?
No at this time.
Mr. Winarski?
No at this time?
Mr. Witherspoon?
Yes.
Mr. Mursky?
No.
All right, City Council adopts this amendment by yeas 4, nays 3. Ken, we have to vote on the resolution now also, don't we?
Well, I know the resolution as amended.
As amended?
Yes. That's appropriate. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, so by Mr. Jones and seconded by Mr. Kwiatkowski, this resolution as amended.
Before we vote on it, I just want to say I'm going to be voting no because the budget doesn't balance per Ms. Green's math. So, thank you.
Yeah, it's got to be revised. Redo it.
Mrs. Arrington?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
With a comment, yes, and by the end of this will be a balanced budget. There'll be adjustments that can be made because, again, mistakes happen, so we can fix those very simply.
Mr. Kwiatkowski?
Yes.
Mr. Winarski?
Yes, with adjustments made, please.
Mr. Witherspoon?
Yes.
No.
This resolution will adopt by yeas 6, nays 1. That'll take us to committee reports, Mr. President.
Mrs. Arrington.
Yes. First, I would like to apologize to our citizens that you had to go through what we just went through for the last 20, 25 minutes. All this should be resolved before we even get up here. The key word is communication. If we communicate with each other, if we all sit down together beforehand, we won't have to have issues like what's just happened today. And for them to say that City Council can change something, and then when we disagree with what the administration want to do, it becomes a little game of I get you, you get me, and that's wrong. I mean, I'm entitled to vote whatever way that I want to vote. You know, all this should have been over and done with a while ago, and I truly apologize that you all had to sit through this and watch us go back and forth like this. It shouldn't have never happened. That's all. Thank you.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would agree with Mrs. Arrington on the point of we definitely could have done a little more communication on both sides of the conversation to make sure that the public discourse wasn't so hot in the moment for some of us. I agree with that, but I don't have a problem with sometimes the citizens seeing us going at it because I think it's appropriate because we often hear that city council or council members, and this is not, again, an indictment on the administration. This is what other people are saying, that we just do whatever they say. Well, it's not the case. And most times we hash this stuff out in the back, and we come out and show a unified front, and then that's why people say, oh, you do whatever Joe says. No, we go at it. Text messages, phone calls, caucus meetings, emails, in the hallway, in the garage, in the stairwell, but we usually don't come out and do it in this setting. And I think this was very respectfully done, to be perfectly honest, even though, we had some disagreements. So I agree and disagree with you, but I think sometimes it's good for the citizens to see the action happen. And no one was disrespected, I don't think, and no one was, mistreated in this public discourse. There's some work obviously needs to be done to make this 100% what it needs to be, and that'll be done post haste to make sure that everything is where it needs to be. Again, interestingly enough, though, there are some changes that need to be made. I'm not sure if it's more than just budget changes that need to be made. If there's more than budget changes, we'll find that out. But just changing the numbers shouldn't be that big of a challenge for the staff that we have in our department and the council members that will be working with them to do that, if that's allowed to happen. Do want to take a moment and, when I first got on council, there was this lady, I thought I was a good golfer. I wanted to go out and play golf. I was learning how to do stuff. And then there was this lady who told me, she said, this is how you get rid of your slice. This is how you get rid of your hook in your swing. Sue LaFavor was just a sweet lady. She kind of took me in. I knew some of her family, went to school with her niece, all those types of things. And she has served the city of Erie for over 40 years in a variety of positions for many years. And she has taken and decided to retire and move on and enjoy life while life is still enjoyable. And so I wanted to take a moment to recognize that. She's retiring as the Assistant Finance Director. And just a really nice lady. She's always been that to me. And so congratulations on that. You've earned it. You have been working here as long as I've been breathing on this planet. And that's, again, a beautiful thing. And I want to get to that point and earn that point and that privilege to retire as well. So, Sue, congratulations. We thank you for your service. And I'm sure you'll continue to be around and do whatever is needed to make the city a better place. Thank you. That's all, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Winarski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, everyone, once again. Attended the special EMTA meeting this past Monday. The purpose of that meeting was to hire outside legal assistance with the ongoing charter issue. The county at their last meeting came with another ultimatum, this time to the EMTA, that it's going to overtake it in possibly 15 days and all its assets. And although I know the E had a pretty good solicitor, and Mr. Walzak, I think just getting an outside opinion, and they end up hiring somebody out of a firm in Pittsburgh that is more, that specializes more in these type of municipality type of issues. Believe it's a good thing. There's always, I know there's a lot of concerns out there. We, as a council, appreciate your support and suggestions, but things are being done on a daily basis to try to resolve this. None of them are going on deaf ears. Everybody has different thoughts and suggestions, but we are going to get this resolved. Not within the day or two, but it is going to get resolved one way or another. So, also, as our large item spring cleanup is coming to a close, I hope the majority of the citizens did take advantage of it. For all the TVs that were left behind, the computers, the tires, they're having a drop-off this coming Saturday at 19th and Holland, except you got to take it to them downtown there, and you got to have photo ID to prove that you're a city resident bringing it. So the citizens of Erie can take advantage of this, and we don't have people from outside the city taking advantage of what we pay the taxes for. But please take advantage of that. I know traveling the neighborhoods, people didn't understand when large items weren't supposed to be TVs and electronics as well as tires, but please take advantage of that and get them down to 19th and Holland. The time on that is between 9 a.m. and 1. Other than that, want to thank our Erie Otters for a great season and their ownership and staff. As that one comes to a close, our Erie Seawolves are opening up, and they're doing better on the road than at home, but please come out and support our local teams. And with that, have a good day.
Thank you. Mr. Kwiatkowski.
Yes, we attended the EMTA meetings also with Councilman Winarski, and I want to also share the public out there that our main concerns as citizens who need the buses, that we are, unlike what you may read in the paper, we have attempted to meet with them, but only when there'll be negotiations not demands, not ultimatums, but real sit-down negotiations. Also attended the airport meeting, as Councilman Jones sometimes can't make them, and good things are happening there, but I still continue to bug them about added air service. But it was a little bit of an embarrassment when I went to Meridian, Mississippi recently, and Hattiesburg, to discover that they had TSA pre-check. And as big as we are, they only had 2 flights going into the airport. They have TSA pre-check, we don't. So I did bring that up to Mr. Rogers, and I hope he'll give me an answer why Erie International Airport, with much more flights than Meridian, Mississippi, hopefully we can have the same things they do. But that's the nice part about traveling. You see a lot of things that you hope your own town would have. And we also attended the neighborhood watch meeting on the east side there. And the concerns came up once again about, although we're doing a better job in some ways, the problems are just shifting. And I once again implore the administration that the perception out there, whether it's true or false, but the perception often becomes reality, that, and I know Mr. Jones has probably took me to task a little bit on this, but I don't feel our code enforcement people are being very proactive. People have called in complaints, nothing gets done. When it takes a councilman 6 months to get a field cleaned up, that's embarrassing, because if I can't do it, what does the average citizen do? Nothing. And I'm not saying they all don't work, because some of them do. But a lot of them, they have to, if you read the Buki report, and Ms. Green selectively picked out certain parts of it, he also said that you cannot allow indirectly the broken window syndrome, where you have one broken window and then you have 2. Okay, so you got to get out there and attack things now. Now, don't wait till you got a whole block that's down, because now it's too late. Now we got problems that were not created by this administration, the past administration. It's gone back since when I was a young lad. At 1958, we had 138,000 people. That's when it began. When we started losing people, for whatever reason, it began back in 1958. And, now you go back and everybody, what happened? Well, it happened. And now you got a bigger problem. We got to start attacking little problems, because they become big problems. And final note to Sue de Lefevre, I had the pleasure as controller of working with her. And the one thing I could always count on was whenever I needed a report on revenue or parking fines, anything, she always had them there and ready for me. That was not always the case with previous administrations, I will tell you that. So it was a pleasure when, as controller, you could go down to her office, you could ask her for some, and you'd probably have it either that minute or before the end of the day. So I admire her in her retirement, but I'm a little mad at her because she never gave me my golf lesson. She promised me I'd never get near a course. Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. President. 2 reports. The Sewer Authority, nothing really to report other than the sewer revenue bond was on the agenda today. For the Port Authority, a couple items just to update. Don John's going to be doing a much-needed roofing repair. There was a lease agreement for the dinner cruise boat. It was a former Victorian Princess. And then there was a contract that was approved for the Acre 8 Tuesdays. And I did want to report, and it was brought to council before, but the amphitheater roof improvements, the bids are due today, so that I don't know when the construction will start, of course, but I'll report back when I have more information on this. And that's it from my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Witherspoon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to say to the citizens who were here that I don't apologize for anything that transpired today. It was a healthy discussion. I don't think it got too far out of hand. You had heard opinions from various individuals, and some of you who know me might say, well, Spoon, he sat up there and didn't say anything. Well, I listen most of the time, and I try to dilute both sides of the story and both sides of the fence, and sometimes you remain like Humpty Dumpty. And you just sit on that edge, and then you make a decision based on what you feel and what you think. Those of you who have not sat here before, it is not an easy task. And some of you ask me, man, I don't know how you do it. But then you come down and you do it anyway. But that's human nature, and I understand that. So we're going to do the best we can You see, we don't all agree. But what I always tell them, when we leave here, leave it here. If you disagree with me and don't vote the way I thought you would vote, and I get on the other side of this wall and you're not talking to me, then you're not my friend anyway. That's how I feel about it. And I think Mrs. Arrington made a good presentation, and Dr. Curtis Jones Jr., his rhetoric was on point. Was on point. So you just basically listen a lot. And sometimes I know you want to come back to the mic and say something because a new thought was generated. You got to hold that. You got to hold that. You got to sit in that seat and hold on to the sides and just burn up. I can see the flames coming out your ears. I can see it. And you can grab me later on. And those of you who know me, you can grab me and say, Spoon, I think this and that, in the language that we talk, that we can't talk here. And I understand that. I roll with you on it. All right? But I think I don't apologize for it. That lets you know that we do bang and we do put on the gloves, but we never hurt one another. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Witherspoon. Just a few things to report. I attended the Jefferson Society meeting on the Erie Comp Plan presented by CZB Incorporated, the firm that developed our comp plan. It was very informative, and a lot of information was presented. The city faces some serious challenges, and I agree with Mr. Buki. If we keep doing things the way we've always done them, we're just managing decline, and we have to. And it's going to take tough decisions, and it's going to take unpopular decisions. But doing what's popular isn't always doing what's right. So these are the things that we have to, as a council and as a city and as a community and as a greater region moving forward, use as and we'll vote on it next week or next meeting, use as a template and decide, is this plan going to sit on a shelf and collect dust like so many that have come before it, or are we actually going to implement it? So, and choices will have to be made. Mr. Winarski spoke already about the recycling this Saturday, May 7th, 9 to 1 at 1926 Holland. Based on all the TVs and electronics that I've seen out, please bring those down, and also the tires, bring those down. And also just to let you know from PennDOT, they'll be doing work on the East Side Connector from 38th Street to the city line, repaving and resurfacing. So as you're out on that Bayfront Connector, please be cautious as you drive. And with that, we'll adjourn the... Oh, I'm sorry. I'm ready to get out of here. This was a long meeting. City Controller, Ms. Stankiewicz.
I don't have anything.
Deputy Treasurer, Mr. Williams.
Good morning, Mr. President and everyone.
Good morning.
Mrs. DeVecchio, our city treasurer, has asked that I read this today because she had oral surgery and is recuperating. Otherwise, she would have been here to make this herself. On your webpage, on the City of Erie's webpage, under City Council, if you go to City Ordinance, then you find the codified ordinance. You could choose which year, most current year, and then under B for Administrative Code. There was on January 12th, 1962, there was an ordinance, number 115.04, which talks about appointments of assistants and employees. That was passed by council, and it says, the city treasurer, the city controller, city clerk, and city solicitor, except as provided in section 115.03, shall each appoint all assistants and employees to his office, whose number and compensation shall be fixed as council by budgetary provisions, provides, and who, in all other respects, shall be considered employees of the city. I am not sure, this is her letter, I am not sure how much clearer this ordinance can be. If you have not heard, I am, Mrs. DeVecchio, having a problem with Mayor Sinnott interfering with the hiring in my office. I have tried to work this out with him, but he is insistent that he has the power to do this. According to this ordinance, I believe he does not. I am asking for this council to support this ordinance. I have the privilege of working with Mrs. Keller, the former city treasurer, who hired all employees in her office. Neither Mayor Savacchio nor Mayor Filippi interfered. At this time, I would like you to all know that on the next council meeting agenda, I am asking for your approval to allow me to hire an attorney for legal counsel in this situation. Thank you for your time. Susan DeVecchio, City Treasurer.
Mr. President?
Mr. Gutowski.
I don't believe you need permission. You have professional services, correct?
Yes.
Yes, I think you can do it on your own, really. I know I did when I was faced with this similar dilemmas with previous administration, not this one. But I would say that after reading the ordinance, I have to agree with Mrs. DeVecchio that it's pretty clear to me that I had the same battle when I was controller. So I would be in support of the independence of not only the treasurer, but the controller and the council. And that would be my unbiased opinion. But if they want to push this, the interesting thing about this book, it has other things that we're not doing that maybe I'll bring to the forefront, which will solve some of our problems on council with the solicitor's office.
Thank you. Administration, Ms. Beck.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's my understanding that the city treasurer has never been involved in any of the hiring and any of her staff under Mayor Sinnott's administration, and I just would leave it at that. This is Firefighter Appreciation Month. I think everybody knows that firefighters are friends of the Muscular Dystrophy Association. We've changed. It was October, and then it was August, and now it is in May. So this Friday, our City of Erie firefighters will be out in the intersections for Fill the Boot campaign. Last year, they collected $20,000 for the MDA local offices. This helps send kids to camp, helps fund research, helps support families who are suffering from this debilitating disease. So this Friday, again, our city firefighters will be helping support the MDA. And if you get stopped, help fill the boot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, if I could, we have usually a regularly scheduled finance meeting immediately after this. We're not going to have that today. And also happy Mother's Day to all those who are biological, spiritual, and community mothers in our community today.
All right. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.
City and Council adjourned to 11:32. Mr. Mursky, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Jones, Mr. Bukowski, with Mr. Winarski.